Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into the science behind some really challenging childhood behaviors. Our whole goal here is to give you clear, research-backed insights that can help bring a little more peace into your home. I'm guessing if you're a parent, that question probably hits home. And you're definitely not alone. It can feel like you're stuck in this never-ending loop of conflict, right? It's especially draining, truly exhausting, if your child is dealing with challenges like ADHD, ODD, or conduct disorder. And that feeling, feeling stressed out, judged, like you're just at a total loss for what to do next, it is so, so common. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the science behind why this happens. And even more importantly, we'll look at what the research says you can actually do about it. So let's start with a little bit of context here. About 8% of kids in the US have been diagnosed with ADHD. And that's just one of several what they call externalizing disorders. Basically, the kind of challenges that can really throw a wrench in family life and strain that parent-child relationship we've been talking about. And look, this stress, it's not just in your head. It's a well-documented reality. Research is crystal clear on this. Parents of kids with ADHD experience way more pressure. And it's often tied to these key things. Feeling like you're not doing a good enough job. That fear of what other people are thinking. And, it can even be connected to your own mental health. Okay, so what is really going on here? Underneath the surface of these tough, repetitive arguments. Let's get right to the heart of it. So there's this theory, and it's a big one. It's called the coercive interaction theory. And really, the most important word there is interaction. This is not about blaming the parent, and it's not about blaming the child. It's about this powerful, often invisible pattern, a feedback loop, that just gets everyone stuck. Okay, so here's a play-by-play of how this invisible trap actually works. It all starts with something super simple, right? A parent makes a request. The child says no, or maybe it escalates into a full-blown tantrum. So what does the parent do? To just make it stop? They give in. And boom, in that exact moment, two things happen. The child learns, hey, defiance works, and the parent learns, giving in buys me some peace. Both sides just got reinforced, and that cycle gets stronger every single time it happens. And here's a really important piece of the puzzle. The research shows that this burden, it often falls more heavily on one parent. Historically, that's been the mother as the primary caregiver. And because of that, they're often the ones who find themselves tangled up in these stressful cycles way more frequently. And we have to be clear about this. This is not just a harmless phase they'll grow out of. If this cycle is left to just keep going, it can have really serious long-term consequences for everybody involved. We're talking about everything from a kid's grades and friendships all the way to a parent's own mental well-being. But, and this is the really hopeful part, because this whole cycle is a learned pattern, it can be unlearned. You absolutely have the power to break it and replace it with something way more positive. So how do we do that? Well, building a new, positive pattern really comes down to three types of strategies. The idea is to get out ahead of the behavior, teach new ways to communicate, and then respond in a way that encourages teamwork instead of a fight. This is that big pivot from being reactive to being proactive. So, think about it. Instead of yelling over and over about picking up toys, you use a simple picture schedule. Suddenly, the expectation is clear, and that fight might not even start. Or, instead of that nightly battle over homework, you create a consistent plan that you both agree on. Boom, that point of conflict is gone. And this is where the next two pieces, teaching and responding, come together. We're not just trying to prevent problems. We're actively teaching new skills. For example, modeling how to ask for a toy instead of just grabbing it. And then, and this is key, when they use that new skill, we respond with something positive. Maybe it's specific praise or a point on the chart. That's how the new positive cycle starts to take root. Now, it's also super important to remember that breaking this cycle is not a one-person job. Every family is unique, and getting all the caregivers on the same page, well, that's absolutely essential. And this right here highlights a huge potential source of conflict, not with the child, but between the parents themselves. Research consistently shows that moms tend to see a child's behaviors as more severe than dads do. Now, this isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about a difference in perception that can cause major inconsistencies in how you parent day to day. And that's exactly why a united front is so critical. It's about getting everyone involved. Fathers, whose positive engagement is directly linked to better outcomes, but also grandparents, step-parents, anyone who's a caregiver. And yeah, we also have to recognize that culture shapes how we parent. But cutting across all of that, the single most important ingredient for success is consistency. All right, so we've looked at the problem, we've looked at the cycle, and we've talked about solutions. So, what are the main things you really need to remember? Let's wrap this up and bring it all together. Okay, if you take away nothing else from this explainer, let it be this. The problem is not you, it is not your child. The problem is the pattern that you're both stuck in, and you absolutely have the power to change that pattern. You do it by being preventative, instructive, and responsive. And your real superpower? It's consistency across all the caregivers in the house. And please remember, the earlier you start, the bigger the difference it's going to make. Look, this is not about flipping a switch and becoming a perfect parent overnight. That's not realistic. This is about progress, not perfection. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What is one small, tiny step you can take, maybe even today, to start changing the pattern in your family? Maybe it's just giving a 2-minute warning before leaving the park, or catching your child doing one thing right and praising them for it. That one small step, that's how a whole new cycle begins.